This is part 2 of a 2-part series covering aircraft displayed at the MAPS Air Museum, an internationally known aviation museum that serves as the center of aviation history for Northeast Ohio. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. It will help others find it. Thank you. The C-130 Hercules is a 4-engine turboprop military transport aircraft designed and built by Lockheed, now Lockheed Martin. It was originally designed as a troop, medevac, and cargo transport aircraft that could use unprepared runways for takeoffs and landings. Its first flight occurred in August 1954. Since then, the U.S. Air Force used various versions of this versatile aircraft for aeromedical evacuations, mid-air refueling of helicopters, mid-air space capsule recovery, search and rescue, reconnaissance, as a gunship, and for many other missions. It is the main tactical airlifter for many military forces worldwide. This aircraft is on loan from the National Museum of the United States Air Force. The Lim-6 was a Polish attack aircraft used between 1961 and 1992 by the Polish Air Force. It is a variant of the MiG-17, NATO reporting name Fresco. One important change from the MiG-17 was the addition of 2 underwing weapons pylons close to the fuselage. Another was the addition of a braking parachute container below the rudder. The Lim-6 BIS was armed with 2 23mm cannons and 1 37mm cannon, like the MiG-17. Typical armament consisted of 2 Polish-made rocket launchers for unguided 57mm S-5 rockets, 16 rockets in each launcher, or 100-kilogram bombs. It could also carry 250-kilogram bombs or launchers on standard outer underwing pods, but usually they were used for 400-liter fuel tanks. This aircraft was donated by the Military Aircraft Restoration Corporation and is the first aircraft to become the sole property of MAPS. The F-11 Tiger is a supersonic, single-seat, carrier-based fighter aircraft designed and produced by the Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation. For a time, it held a world altitude record of 76,939 feet and was Grumman's first supersonic fighter. However, at no point was the Tiger capable of sustained supersonic flight in an operational configuration. 7 U.S. Navy squadrons flew the Tiger, but its frontline fighter career lasted only 4 years as its performance was inferior to the competing and considerably faster Vought F-8 Crusader. Other factors included the unreliability of its J-65 engine and the inadequacy of both its range and endurance. While the Tiger's fighter career was relatively short, the Blue Angels performed in the aircraft between 1957 and 1968. The A-4 Skyhawk is a single-seat, subsonic, carrier-capable light attack aircraft designed and produced by the Douglas Aircraft Company. It was developed during the early 1950s on behalf of the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps as a replacement for the propeller-driven Douglas A-1 Skyraider. It was the Navy's primary light attack aircraft used over Vietnam during the early years of the war. The Navy began removing it from frontline attack squadrons in 1967, with the last one being retired in 1976, while continuing to use it as a training and adversarial aircraft into the 90s. The Marine Corps kept the Skyhawk in service until the mid-1980s. The A-4's nimble performance enabled it to perform in the Blue Angels demonstration team from 1973 to 1986. The McDonnell F-101 Voodoo was a supersonic military jet fighter initially designed as a long-range bomber escort known as a penetration fighter for the Strategic Air Command. It was instead developed as a nuclear-armed fighter-bomber for the Tactical Air Command and as a photo reconnaissance aircraft based on the same airframe. While capable of carrying conventional bombs, rockets, or Falcon air-to-air missiles, the Voodoo never used such weapons operationally. It was fitted with 4 20mm cannon, one cannon often removed in service to make room for a TACAN's beacon receiver, a tactical air navigation system. This aircraft is painted and marked to depict an F-101B assigned to the 87th Fighter Interception Squadron while the unit was part of the Air Defense Command. This aircraft is on loan from the National Museum of the United States Air Force. Convair's F-102 Delta Dagger was an interceptor aircraft built as part of the backbone of the United States Air Force's air defenses in the late 1950s. It was the first operational supersonic interceptor and delta wing fighter of the United States Air Force. Entering service in 1956, its main purpose was to intercept invading Soviet bomber fleets. It used an internal weapons bay to carry both guided missiles and rockets. Delta Daggers served in the Vietnam War, flying fighter patrols and serving as bomber escorts. It was occasionally employed in the air-to-ground role with limited success, although neither the aircraft nor the pilot training were designed for that role. 14 Delta Daggers were lost in Vietnam, 1 in air-to-air combat, several to ground fire, and the remainder to accidents. The aircraft is on loan from the National Museum of the United States Air Force. The Cessna T-37 Tweet, designated Model 318 by Cessna, is a small, economical twin-engine jet trainer aircraft which flew for decades as a primary trainer for the United States Air Force and in the air forces of several other nations. The air intake into its small turbojets emitted a high-pitched shriek. The piercing whistle sound gave rise to its nickname of Tweety Bird, which was regularly shortened to Tweet. Over the decades, the U.S. Air Force made several attempts to replace it. However, it remained in the U.S. Air Force service into the 21st century. The T-37 Tweet was ultimately phased out in favor of the Beechcraft T-6 Texan II between 2001 and 2009. The Republic F-105 Thunderchief was a supersonic fighter bomber used by the United States Air Force. The Mach 2 capable Thunderchief bore the brunt of strike bombing over North Vietnam during the early years of the Vietnam War, but has the dubious distinction of being the only U.S. aircraft removed from combat due to high attrition rates. Originally designed as a single-seat nuclear attack aircraft, a 2-seat Wild Weasel version was later developed for use in the specialized suppression of enemy air defense role against surface-to-air missile sites. It was commonly known as the Thud by its crews. This aircraft is painted and marked as it was while assigned to the 466th Fighter Squadron at Hill Air Force Base, Utah in 1977. It is on loan from the National Museum of the United States Air Force. The Grumman OV-1 Mohawk is an armed military observation and attack aircraft that was designed for battlefield surveillance and light strike capabilities. It was intended to operate from short, unimproved runways in support of United States Army maneuver forces. The Mohawk's missions included observation, artillery spotting, air control, emergency resupply, naval target spotting, liaison, and radiological monitoring. The Army flew the OV-1 operationally in the Vietnam War and also used the aircraft during Operation Desert Storm. Army Mohawks were retired from Europe in 1992, from Korea in September 1996, and finally in the United States in 1996, superseded by the newer systems, newer aircraft, and the evolution of reconnaissance satellites. The aircraft on display is painted and marked as it was while assigned to the 131st Aviation Company in Phu Bai, South Vietnam. MiG-21, NATO reporting name Fishbed, is a supersonic jet fighter aircraft designed in the Soviet Union. It was designed for very short ground-controlled intercept missions and was known for this type of mission in the skies over North Vietnam. Although the Fishbed lacked the long-range radar, missiles, and the heavy bomb load of its contemporary multi-mission U.S. fighters, its RP-21 SAPFA radar helped make it a challenging adversary in the hands of experienced pilots. Approximately 60 countries over 4 continents have flown the MiG-21, and it still serves many nations a half-century after its maiden flight. At least by name, it is the most produced supersonic jet aircraft in aviation history and the most produced combat aircraft since the Korean War. The aircraft is on loan from the National Museum of the United States Air Force. The McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom II is a tandem, 2-seat, twin-engined, all-weather, long-range supersonic jet interceptor fighter bomber originally developed for the United States Navy. It first entered service in 1960 with the Navy. Proving highly adaptable, it was also adopted by the Marine Corps and the Air Force, and by the mid-1960s had become a major part of their respective air wings. During the Vietnam War, Navy F-4 Phantoms participated in 84 combat tours with F-4Bs, F-4Js, and F-4Ns. The Navy claimed 40 air-to-air victories at a cost of 73 Phantoms lost in combat, 7 to enemy aircraft, 13 to SAMs, and 53 to AAA. An additional 54 Phantoms were lost in mishaps. The aircraft on display is an F-4S Phantom II that is painted and marked as an F-4J while deployed aboard the USS Ranger. It is on loan from the National Naval Aviation Museum. The Aero L-29 Delfin, NATO reporting name Maya, is a military jet trainer developed and manufactured by Czechoslovakian aviation manufacturer Aero. It is the first Czech locally designed and constructed jet aircraft and became the standard trainer for Warsaw Pact air forces. The Delfin served in basic, intermediate, and weapons training roles. It was equipped with hard points to carry gun pods, bombs, or rockets for its weapons training role and was a relatively good ground attack aircraft when deployed as such. The Cessna A-37 Dragonfly, or Super Tweet, is an American light attack aircraft developed from the T-37 Tweet basic trainer in the 1960s and 70s. The A-37 was introduced during the Vietnam War and remained in peacetime service afterward. In forward air control operations, the second seat was occupied by an observer. Only one crewman normally flew in the aircraft for close air support missions, permitting a slight increase in ordnance. This aircraft is a T-37B that was restored and converted to resemble an A-37B Dragonfly. The aircraft is on loan from the National Museum of the United States Air Force. The LTV A-7 Corsair II is a carrier-based subsonic light attack aircraft introduced to replace the Navy's Douglas A-4 Skyhawk and entered service during the Vietnam War. Its airframe design was based on the successful supersonic Vought F-8 Crusader. It was one of the first combat aircraft to feature a heads-up display, an inertial navigation system, and a turbofan engine. In Vietnam, the hot, humid air robbed all jet engines of power, so carrier catapult launches at maximum weight under these performance-robbing conditions were characterized by the aircraft decelerating by as much as 20 knots immediately after launch. As a result, Corsair II units operated the aircraft 4,000 pounds, 1,800 kilograms, below the rated maximum takeoff weight. It was later adopted by the United States Air Force to replace the Douglas A-1 Skyraider, North American F-100 Super Sabre, and Republic F-105 Thunderchief. The aircraft on display is an A-7 Corsair II, painted and marked as it was while assigned to Attack Squadron 105 at Naval Air Station Cecil Field, Florida in 1988. The aircraft is on loan from the National Naval Aviation Museum. The AH-1 Cobra is an attack helicopter manufactured by Bell Helicopter. It was developed in the mid-1960s as an interim gunship for the U.S. Army for use during the Vietnam War. It shares a common engine, transmission, and rotor system with the older UH-1 Iroquois. It was the backbone of the United States Army's attack helicopter fleet, but has been replaced by the AH-64 Apache in Army service. Advanced versions are still in service with the United States Marine Corps. This AH-1S is painted and marked as it was when assigned to the 107th Air Control Squadron. It is on loan from the United States Army's TACOM Lifecycle Management Command. The Northrop Grumman EA-6A Prowler was the initial electronic warfare version of the A-6 Intruder and served the United States Marine Corps and Navy. Designed for both carrier and advance-based operations, the EA-6B is a fully integrated electronic warfare system combining long-range, all-weather capabilities with advanced electronic countermeasures. It can carry and fire anti-radiation missiles such as the AGM-88 HARM missile. Prowlers began Vietnam combat missions in 1972, where 2 squadrons flew 720 sorties supporting Navy attack aircraft. During the 1983 invasion of Grenada, 4 Prowlers supported the operation from the USS Independence. The CA-6B Prowler is on loan from the National Museum of the Marine Corps. The Grumman F-14 Tomcat is a supersonic, twin-engine, 2-seat, variable sweep-wing fighter aircraft. One key feature is its highly effective variable sweep wing that enables it to operate over a wide range of airspeeds. Soviet Cold War advancements in long-range patrol and bomber aircraft dictated a need for a fleet defense fighter that could engage high-altitude bombers from well beyond visual range. Equipped with long-range AIM-54 Phoenix air-to-air missiles, Grumman's F-14 Tomcat could engage multiple hostiles over 90 miles away, fulfilling that need. The Tomcat saw its first combat in August 1981, downing 2 Libyan Su-22 fighters over the Gulf of Sidra. The displayed aircraft is a Grumman F-14B that is painted and marked matching its appearance when assigned to VF-32 as an F-14A between 1986 and 1994. This aircraft is on loan from the National Naval Aviation Museum. General Dynamics F-16 Fighting Falcon evolved into a successful all-weather multi-role aircraft. Its key features include a frameless bubble canopy for better visibility, a side-mounted control stick to ease control while maneuvering, a seat reclined 30 degrees to reduce the effects of G-force on the pilot, and the first use of a relaxed static stability fly-by-wire flight control system that helps make it a nimble aircraft. The Fighting Falcon has an internal M61 Vulcan cannon and 11 locations for mounting weapons and other mission equipment. The Air Force, including the Air Force Reserve and the Air National Guard, flew the F-16 in combat during Operation Desert Storm in 1991 and in the Balkans later in the 1990s. It also patrolled the no-fly zones in Iraq during Operations Northern and Southern Watch and served during the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq from 2001 and 2003 respectively. In 2011, Air Force Fighting Falcons took part in the intervention in Libya. The displayed aircraft is on loan from the National Museum of the United States Air Force. The Hawk Aero II is a two-seater offered in kit form to be built as an amateur-built experimental aircraft in the U.S. The long, streamlined cockpit area has a flat floor and a low, sloping windshield that gives unobstructed forward visibility. The large vertical tail balances the long nose, yielding excellent yaw stability. Though the Hawk Aero II or its variants are not in the military, Maps displays the plane with U.S. Army colors. It has the roundel markings used by the U.S. Army Air Service and the U.S. Army Air Corps from August 1919 through May 1942. The Bell OH-52 Kiowa is a family of single-engine, single-rotor military helicopters used for observation, utility, and direct fire support. Bell Helicopter manufactured it for the United States Army based on their Model 206 Jet Ranger helicopter. One distinctive feature of the operational Kiowa is the knife-like extensions above and below the cockpit, which are part of the passive wire strike protection system. It protects 90% of the frontal area of the helicopter from wire strikes that can be encountered at low altitudes by directing wires to the upper or lower blades before they can entangle the rotor blades or landing skids. This OH-58A is painted and marked as it was while assigned to the 107th Air Control Squadron, Ohio Air National Guard at North Canton, Ohio. The aircraft is on loan from the United States Army's TACOM Life Cycle Management Command. I hope you enjoyed this video and would appreciate your clicking the like button to help others find it. Thank you.